Hey everybody, it's Phoebe from Quilted Pig. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so glad to see you here. What I've got today is a really fun little project. It's something that I've been kind of kicking around for a little while, trying to figure out the best way to make it, and I wanted to share it with you now that I think that I've got it done. So what we've got here is you have this little thing that you can keep in your purse, and then you can unzip it, and dun da da da! You have a bag for the farmer's market or your groceries or whatever. And when you're done, you can just fold it back up, zip it up again, and use it again next week. So let's see how I make these. Okay, so here's what we need to get started with a bag. I am going to show you cutting directions for 2 bags out of 1 yard of fabric, but this is just the cutting instructions for 1. So what we're going to start out with, we have a piece of fabric that is 16 inches wide. It's 34 inches long. Now I have folded under and pressed, finger pressed, 1 inch on each of the short ends of that. That's going to be the top hem of our bag. So we'll set that aside. Next, for your handle, you need a piece that is 2.5 inches wide. I cut this at 34 inches long just for ease of use with cutting across the other piece, but you could certainly do it the full 36 inches of the full yard of fabric that you're starting with. So we have that. Next is an 8 by 9 piece of the exterior. This is going to be your exterior pocket. I folded it in half along the long edge. So this is the 8 inches. This was the 9 inches, folded it in half and gave it a crease there as well. Now for the Oly Fun, you can use a low iron on it. However, I found that it was making me so nervous about burning this fabric that I didn't really enjoy that. Lastly, you need a 22-inch zipper. You can probably get away with a 20, but for the extra few cents, I decided that it was just easier to start with the 22. This zipper is going to end up being this way, so like I said, you could probably get away with a 20-inch zipper if that's what you've got, but I'm using a 22. So you will see today that I am using both a orange zipper and a black zipper. Partly that's because I only have 1 orange zipper, and partly that's because I want to use some black thread that's contrasting so that you can see. So if you see that, you know, from shot to shot, I've got an orange zipper, I've got a black zipper, that's why you're seeing that. So let's go to the sewing machine and get started. So we do have one more thing to get to before we actually get started sewing. I told you I would tell you how to cut 2 out of 1 yard of fabric. The Oly Fun that you can buy on the bolt comes in a 60-inch width. So I purchased 1 yard each of several colors that were available to me locally. So obviously this isn't entirely to scale, but this will give you an idea of how I cut my pieces in order to get 2 bags from 1 yard. What I did was I took a 16-inch wide strip off the side, a second 16-inch wide, and then I shortened those to 34. I took a 2.5 and a 2.5. I also shortened those to 34. And then lastly, the 2 pocket pieces. So that gives you some that is waist over here. So that's the most efficient way that I could find to do that. However, if you decided you wanted to make a whole bunch of these, you could take advantage of some economies of scale by just going to 1.25 yards for how much of the Oly Fun that you purchase. Doing that would give you 60 inches wide by 45 inches tall. In that case, you could get 3 of the 16-inch panels, plus you would put your 2.5s across. Now remember, this is Oly Fun fabric, so there's no grain. You don't have to worry about it stretching or anything. But cutting your strips this direction gives you enough for 3 straps from each of these pieces. And then you still have room for the 3 outside pockets. And again, if you up that up to 2.25 yards, you could get 6 out of those. So if you were making these for Christmas gifts or, you know, some other kind of gift where you needed to have a whole bunch of the same thing, this would be a great way to make that increase. So here we are. I've got everything laid out for 2 bags. That includes the straps, 2 zippers, 2 pockets for the outer pockets, and 2 of the main bag. What I have done to start with is I have taken the strap fabric and pressed it in half. I did a finger press. Again, I wasn't comfortable with using the iron. And then I turned it under 1/4 of an inch and used clips on this. Now, after I got all this cut out, I thought, this is Oly Fun. You don't need to turn that under because it's not going to ravel. So I did cut an extra kind of an experimental piece that I'll show you how I do. And I basically finger pressed it into thirds like this, which I think would do the strap nicely as well. This was cut at 3 inches. So if you decided you wanted to do it this way, because I think this would actually be a lot easier, it will still fit in both of those cutting diagrams that I just showed you. For feet, I've got a regular straight stitch foot and a zipper foot. We'll use both of those today. Now let's go ahead and get you zoomed in on the needle so you can see this in action. So we're going to start out with the black thread because I think that will be the most visible to see on this orange fabric. I'm going to take out my first pin and get this lined up. Now my machine has in between the toes of the foot, it's approximately 1/8 from where the needle is to the first inner edge of the toe. So I use that a lot for top stitching. It's a good guideline for me. Like I said, it's about 1/8 of an inch, so it looks nice, but it's a good way also to keep it stable throughout your entire project. So that's what we're going to do. I didn't back tack. We are going to end up cutting these in half anyway, and then they'll get stitched in when I stitch in the hem of the bag, so there's no reason to do that. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through the rest of this portion, just because we're just sewing in a straight line. It's not anything exciting. So this is what we have, and that will become our strap. Now, in the interest of perhaps an easier way to do this, I'm going to show you this. And again, I'm sorry, I didn't even think of this until the end, and I don't know why. This is the piece that was left over from the top after I trimmed it from 30, excuse me. This is the piece that I trimmed off from cutting the main bag portion, and this is going from 1 yard down to 34 inches. You do want the 34 inches, not the full 36, because when you fold this up, you want it to all fit in the bag. But that gives you this little piece, and I can show you how this works now. So if I were going to do this for a full-on strap, I would do the same thing. Instead of cutting it at 2.5, I would cut it at 3. And you can see this one's a little wavy, but that has to do with how it was cut at the store. And then fold it into thirds. And then at that point, once again, I could go 1/8 inch from the side, like so, or I could stitch it straight down the middle, and that would give us a very solid piece to use as our strap as well. So in real life, I probably wouldn't use such a high contrast thread, but you can see where that could be made to work really nicely and still make a nice solid strap for us. And I'd sew a little straighter if I were doing it on purpose. So let's move on to the next step. So I'm back at the machine for the next step. I have my 8x9 piece of the Oly Fun. I have the little pressing line that you can see right there. I have a black zipper because I think that will show up better. I've also changed my top thread to an orange thread again, so it will show up better for you. And I have put on a zipper foot and moved my needle all the way to the left. Now I find that the zipper is easier to put on when it's unzipped. I'm going to take my first beginning part and I'll line that up with the edge of the fabric right at the crease. And so the tab right there, that's what the zipper stop, keeps the zipper from the pull from going all the way off is right there at the corner of that crease. So we're going to line that up. You can pin this if you like. I found it was easier for me to just go on through. I'm using the edge of my zipper foot as my guide for the edge of the fabric and the zipper, and then the needle will fall in between that and the zipper teeth. That gives me about 1/4 of an inch over here and about 1/4 of an inch that way. And I'm going to scoot it forward just a little bit so that I can back tack, because this is where you're going to have the wear, is when you're zipping and unzipping that zipper. Get that tail out of the way. And just keep stitching along. Now, as I approach the corner, I'm putting my my needle down, and I'm just going to kind of manipulate the zipper a little bit around the corner. Don't stretch it, but just kind of ease it into place. And so your corners are going to be a little bit rounded, and that's okay. That's the look we're going for. But you'll just stitch slowly around the corner and just kind of manipulate it around that corner as you go. Do a little bit of easing right there. Keep manipulating that zipper. And since I've got my needle down, it's okay to pick it up and fidget with it a little bit. So once again, we're on the straightaway. Get going. Approaching the next corner, once again, just manipulate it around and give it a little curl there. Needle down, and raise that up. And again, we're not stretching. These zipper tapes aren't really on the bias, but they do have a little bit of give to them. And so you can use that to your advantage to just kind of circle it around the corner. So now I'm beginning to approach that where we folded over here. I don't know that you'll be able to pick it up on camera, but I can see it clearly here in front of me. So as I'm approaching that, I just want to keep my eye on it. And maybe put your finger there just so you can remember. And I'm going to stop just a couple of stitches shy of that in order to give us a little bit of room to manipulate the actual zipper head when it comes time for that. I am going to back tack, and then I'll take this out. So you can see what I've done there. You can see that thread. So what I'm going to do now is I will move my needle to the other side of the zipper foot. I will bring this end of the zipper back up. I'll overlap it, again, just leaving it just a hair off of that space. I'll do the back tack and go around the exact same way, ending once I get to here. So after a small moment of panic where I thought that I had sewn the zipper in incorrectly, it does occur to me that I probably should tell you for sure which way to face the teeth. So this is sewn from what will become the outside of the bag. The teeth face towards the inside of your stitch line, and they face with the pretty side of the zipper down. So once you get that all together, we've got this tail at the end. I went through and trimmed, rounded these corners off just a little bit, just to reduce some bulk. So at this point, we are to the point where you can decide, do you want to add any kind of an embellishment to the outside of this bag? Now, I did consider doing some machine embroidery on this, but decided that it was probably too heavy by the time I would put in the stabilizer as well as the stitching and all of that, and I didn't want that extra bulk in there. However, I did find that I had some scrap pieces of the Oly Fun from another project, and so I decided to do a little applique here. Something that you will want to keep in mind is when you do go to put this onto the bag itself, the big portion of the bag, you'll need to keep in mind whether you have an up and a down, because once the bag is open, one side of this will be up and the other side will very definitely be down. So that matters if you are left or right-handed on the zipper. If that's something that is going to affect the way you do things, that might matter to you. For me, it didn't really matter. But what I've got is some little scraps. And Oly Fun comes in a lot of colors. It comes in 18 total colors. I believe that they mostly are gearing this towards school colors. So it's a lot of primary basic type colors. And so when I started putting this orange one together, I realized this kind of looks like a little pumpkin. And you could really make this into a trick-or-treat bag very easily. It could then be folded up and put away and saved again for next year. So what I did was, from my black scraps, I cut a little mouth and some eyes. And I'm just going to use a straight stitch and stitch these down. Like I said, again, once the bag is open fully, these will show on the outside. But we want to go ahead and do it now so that the stitching behind them is on the inside of this, which will be covered by the main bag when we're finished. So I'm just going to open that out. I'm going to go ahead and switch to my regular foot and I'll come back to you. So I'm just starting at a corner piece. Depending on what shape you're using to applique on, you might want to start somewhere else. I'm going to use a straight stitch and just back tack it just a little bit. Or not, depending on how my machine works. Now again, I'm just following that interior bit of the toe on my foot as my guideline. And I'm trying to get this as straight as I can. I haven't pinned it or done any kind of a fusible. So I just used a straight stitch, put this on. You can tell it's a little, we'll call it primitive. Some might call it wonky. We're not factories here, so that's what we have. I will continue doing the eyeballs and then we'll come back in just a minute and get started on the actual assembly of the bag. Okay, so I've switched angles for this portion, mostly because I think it's more important for you to be able to see the whole project as it's coming together than zoomed in exactly on what is going on at the needle level. So what we've got here, we have our main body of the bag. I have put clips up here at the top, mostly to show myself that that's the top. That's also where the hem is going to go. That pulls the top down enough to where I was able to center this on this main body of the bag. Like we talked about earlier, I made sure that the little face was facing up so that when the bag is in use as a bag, the face is facing up. You can still see my zipper through the back of that. I haven't trimmed it out yet. I'm going to wait until I stitch over this so that I know that it's all secure before I trim off the extra part, but that will be gone. Funny, not funny story about this. The first time I made one of these was I pinned inside here on the main bag to make sure that I had the cross for the center and forgot to take the pins out. So that was exciting to try to wrestle those out through the little hole that you end up with over here. So here's where we're going to go from here. I'm going to take these pins out so that we've got just one flat thing. And then I'm going to stitch around this starting here, and I'm going to top stitch all the way around, which will attach our little pouchy bag to the body of our main bag. I'm actually going to go this direction, but we'll do that, get that stitched all the way around, and then we'll move on to the next step. I did leave orange thread in the top because I don't want it to stand out with like it would with black thread. I've also switched back to my zipper foot so that we don't have any kind of wrestling issues with the teeth of that zipper. I don't expect that we would, but just in case, it gives me a little extra room for that. So after a few struggles with skip stitches, I'm back, and hopefully this will work better. So if there's something that can be a foible, this is it. I believe that the reason I'm getting some skip stitches has to do with this being raised up by the zipper. So what I've done is I've back tacked. I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to put the zipper foot back on and then make some adjustments to where my needle lands. That way I can continue sewing this the rest of the way around. I went ahead and pulled up that bobbin thread. That is a tip that is a general good practice, especially if you're top stitching and you need the back to look nice too. That way you don't get a bird's nest of it. But mostly I'm doing it because I'm trying to watch out for why are we skipping stitches. I'm going to move that needle one more notch over to the right. We'll come around this corner. I'm going to turn these off so don't forget later. And then you can see the tail of the zipper is over there. I'm worried about it interfering here. I have this clip here, and that is because this tail is tucked under there, and that is where those metal pieces are. So I don't want to sew over those, but I do want to catch the tail portion of that as I come across it. So I'm going to take the clip out very gently and try to still hold everything in place with my fingers. Making an adjustment because it did not pick up that stitch. There we go. Now as you're going around, you're just tucking that seam allowance from stitching the zipper onto the bag in. So at this point, we've reached as far as this foot can go without hitting the zipper pull. So I'm going to back tack that. Now we will move on to our last couple of steps, and then our bag will be finished. Okay. So next is putting in the hems at the top of the bag, as well as putting in the straps onto the bag. So remember at the beginning I pressed this down, so I'm going to hold that down. I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, I'll use my presser foot to hold that down. I'm going to go ahead and change to a black thread on the top, just so we have the same thing all the way around. Earlier, I'm going to cut that in half to make my straps approximately 17 inches long. Now again, as we talked about when we were talking about the cutting diagrams, you can do that the full length of your 1 yard of fabric, which will give you an extra inch or so. It's just up to you. The thing you do want to watch out for, and I have swapped back to that black thread for the top. So I'll have black thread that shows underneath and black thread that's on the inside here. Mostly that's for contrast for you guys, but also since we have the little touches of black like the black zipper and things like that, that will help. So I've got that pressed under. The big thing, and I apologize, this really just wants to jump off the table. The big thing that we want to keep an eye on is how our straps are facing, as far as do you want the seams to be out or do you want them to be in, and then we want to make sure that we don't have this twisted like that, because that won't work. Now I'm going to do these with the seam facing in, just a personal preference on this particular one. I am going to find my center which just is a quick fold it in half kind of situation. And you can get serious and measure this if you'd like. I'm not going to today. I'm going to go about 3 inches out from that center. I'll put in a clip just to hold it in place. And then again, making sure that we're not twisted on the straps. I'm going to go again about 3 inches out from the center. And you can kind of eyeball that from either the center or you can eyeball it from the edge. I'm just going to double check. I do want them to be fairly even. So if I do that, fold it in half, again, double checking that we're not twisted. And I'm going to clip that into place as well. Okay, so we're going to do 2 rows of stitching to put this together. The first one, I'm going to, like I said earlier, use that inside toe measurement on my foot. And I'm going to come across that distance from the top, which is approximately 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to do the same at the bottom here. Then we'll flip this over and I will use these as my template for where I place the straps on the front of the bag. Okay, so it's time for our very last step at the end. I have switched back to a orange top and bottom thread. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the bag. I've got those hems sewn in like we talked about. And you can see, remember I said that you should pull up your bottom bobbin stitch or bobbin thread to keep from having a bird's nest. That right there is why. Got that trimmed off. So I'm going to fold the bag so that it is right sides together. Just like that. I'm going to start at the top, and we've mentioned this before. This is Oly Fun fabric, so it's not going to ravel. You don't have to encase all the seams or anything like that, but I did want to switch to the orange thread because I wanted it to not show. I'm going to use just a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to back tack here at the top, and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. Okay, back tack at the bottom, and trim those close. I'm going to flip it over and sew the next one, the other side. Now instead of pulling up your bobbin thread, which some older machines it's a better choice. This machine is kind of it's from the late 90s, so it mostly keeps it in control, but it's a good idea to hold your threads. Doing that right there. Did my back tack. I'm going to go all the way to the end again. Okay, that is fully stitched at this point. Let's turn our bag right side out. Now again, this is that Oly Fun, so it's not going to ravel at the seams. So we can just go ahead and turn that right side out. Now this one, remember I said at the beginning there would be a black zipper and an orange zipper because I was doing two different ones. So on this one, go ahead and poke those corners out. And I sewed this one with just a purple stripe on it instead of the pumpkin face. So you can still, you know, use that for kind of a generic fall rather than just a Halloween. So I want to show you how you get these folded up so that they go into that wallet shape that you can put in your purse. So once we pull that out, now the Oly Fun will learn its folds, but once we pull it out, lay it out in front of you and smooth out those little seam lines, and we're going to fold in from each side, from the side, from the side, and from this side I can tell that I did not get this quite centered as far as left to right, but it's going to be okay because it'll all fit in there. And then we fold up the bottom, and if you can see on the table here, I'm at the zipper is around the side, the bottom, the side. And then we fold in the top and get our handles in there. And then we fold it in half, give it a zip. So for anybody who makes zipper bags, you know that the first couple of times zipping them up, it's always a little bit not smooth because you're getting the zipper trained as well as now we're training this inside fabric to work for us. But look at that. Now we've got a little bag to put in our purse, our glove box, etc. And like I said, you can open this up, take it to the farmer's market, and use it for lots of different things. So here's some different ways that you can decorate these. This particular one, I just took a stripe of the Oly Fun fabric. I zigzagged it on with some orange thread, just like what I was using for the rest of it. Everything else matches. This one you saw at the beginning, it's just plain purple. This was kind of my prototype. This is the one you saw me working on, and these are the Oly Fun, they're the scraps from making the black bag. So you can see, don't waste your Oly Fun scraps. You just go ahead and save them because you can use them for applique on all kinds of different projects, and you don't have to tuck them under or do anything weird to make them work. On this one here, I took a piece of just regular quilting cotton fabric. I stitched it down with a straight stitch. I didn't pink it and I didn't zigzag it. So I'm not sure how that'll hold up, but for right now I think it's really cute. But you can see just this little black bag, and it has the design on both sides. And then if we open it up, again with the zipper being newly installed, it's not exactly smooth yet. But you can see after this has been zipped up for a couple of days, you can see it learned its place. But we could still easily go to the farmer's market. We've got a nice little design on our bag, nothing too flashy. And we can use that again and again. And then our last one, I wasn't sure about a book bag, but I thought, you know, if you were going to a book fair, or maybe this is your kid's library bag, okay, so you can get some books, but you can only get as many as what fills up this, and then we'll get new books next week. So I thought this was kind of cute, and this is with the crayon fabric, and then the yellow zipper. So again, to fold this up, let's lay it flat. We put in one side, we put in the other, put in that one, put in the top, and then fold in those handles, fold it in half, and then we just zip it up, and then that bag is ready to wait until next week when you make the next trip to the library, the next trip to the farmer's market, to the grocery store, etc. So I'm really glad that you joined me today. I hope that you enjoy these bags. I think they're a lot of fun. They're not too difficult to make, and it's a neat way to have something that you can use over and over again. So thank you again so much, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.